Hi guys, welcome back to another Creative Tab tutorial. This is lesson 4 of our motion tracking in Nuke series. Now in this session we're going to be looking at stabilizing a tricky shot with 2-point tracking. So carrying on from our previous lesson of 2-point tracking, if you haven't checked that one out, I advise checking that one out first because it shows you a lot of problem solving techniques with difficult tracks. And what we're going to be doing in this lesson, you can see I've got a shot which I'll provide the link for of a shaky shot being taken in the back of a car. You can see it shaking around. It's not very nice to look at. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be stabilizing this shot, all 350 frames. Okay, so that's the initial shot, and I'm just going to pause while I preview in the stabilized version to show you as well. Okay, and you can see now that I've previewed it in. This is our stabilized version. You can see that the edges are kind of coming in by here, and I'll be showing you how to resolve this. But if you just focus in on this little bit by here, this dashboard, it's now a lot more stable than it was before. Okay, so we're going to stabilize it around these areas. Okay, so let's dive on in. What I'm going to do is I've already taken my footage and I've exported out a TIFF sequence with a write node. So that's what you're going to want to do first, because working with MP4s or even MOVs and you could just ain't the best. Work with an image sequence. So I got a TIFF sequence. If you don't know how to do that, please check out the rendering from Nuke or writing out from Nuke tutorial, which I posted up, and I'll link that as well. Okay, so first of all, let's start off by analysing our footage. We know we've got some translation in there, so up, down, left and right. There is going to be, because it's handheld, there's going to be a little bit of rotation in there, and because it's so shaky you can probably almost guess that. In terms of scale, having worked with this shot before, I know that there's very minimal scale in there and you don't really need to worry about scale, but we're going to have 2 points in there anyway because we've got rotation. Okay, so we know we need a 2-point track to stabilize this. But also, if we look at it, if I just stop it around about here, the points that we want to track, right? We don't want to track outside the window because the stuff outside the window is moving towards the camera and the inside of the car isn't. So that's just going to give us a wildly wrong track. So we need to stick inside the car to stabilize this. We don't want to track any points of the man. Because there's not a lot we can track. There's some detail in the shirt, possibly some pattern there, but he's also moving independently of the car because he may move his arm independently. Okay, so we know we've got to track the actual car unit. This dashboard, there's not a lot of detail. We have got these lights, however, okay, and that's a bit of a saving grace. However, if we look at what we're going to track, I'm going to track this little red hazard light and this little red speedometer over here. Now, a lot of people would say track some of these dots down here. The reason I'm not is because if you're having a 2-point track, it's better if you can get your points far away from each other to get more of a general. Having done it before, having done tracking loads in the past, moving my tracker points further away from each other to get a 2-point track nearly always gives me better results, okay, in terms of the rotation and scale in comparison to each other, okay, because these are just too close to each other to really show how much rotational scale there is. So I'm going to do this point and this point. So those are the points we're going to track. However, if we look at the red hazard light, it's dark over here. This area is dark, and then when we get to here, it's quite light. So there's some luminance changes in there, and that's going to cause us some problems. So it's dark, light, dark, okay, and that's going to cause us some issues. He also, his neck kind of nearly just knocks our tracker off when we track that. So we've got a couple issues that we're going to work around. So to start with, I'm going to make my tracker. So new tracker node, drag that in, and like we identified, there's some luminance changes in here. So within the settings of my tracker, I'm going to tick adjust for luminance changes, and that's going to help Nuke out a lot. Now if we come down into the auto tracking settings, I know that in the warp type, we've got translate, which is up, down, left, right. But I also know there's going to be some element of rotation in there. You could go translate, rotate, and scale. But knowing that there's not a great deal of scale in there, I'm just going to tick translate and rotate. So it knows that that's what's in there. In terms of the pattern, again, I go through what pattern grab is in the previous tutorial in lesson 3. So if you're not sure what I'm about to talk about, please check that out. But yeah, pattern grab behavior. I'm going to keep this to if error above. And I'm going to change the when error to 0.00005, okay, just to make that a little bit more sensitive. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make my first track point. I'm going to click in and I'm going to home this now on the middle of this red little hazard light, okay? And I'm going to just crunch this in. So just crunch this in quite tightly around it, like so. And this search region, I don't want it too large because it doesn't do a lot of jerky movement, but I'm going to have it quite wide, okay, just like that, just to give it its best chance. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to track backwards. Okay, so we've done that, and now I'm going to come back to frame 50, and I'm going to hit the track forward button. Okay, so mine is now fully tracked, so let's take a look at what we've got. Let's first of all start by turning the traffic lights on. Okay, that's actually better than I thought it would be. So I'm going to come through, and I can see there's a little red there, and I reckon that little red keyframe is where the dashboard gets quite bright. Okay, so if you don't actually know what these traffic lights are, again, make sure you check out earlier tutorials, but these traffic lights indicate when you turn them on and off. Red indicates where you've got bad frames, errorsome frames, and green indicates where you've got frames which are fine or good. Okay, so I think this turning on adjust for luminance changes really help the track, but let's take a quick look at it in the curve editor. So let's come down to track 1, error, and let's go edit, no, view, frame all. So yeah, I'd expect my peaks to be round about by here. So we've got an error of 0.1. What I am going to do is just cycle through my frames with the arrow keys, and actually it's sticking. So I'm just going to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab pattern up here. So click grab pattern, and I'm just going to cycle to the next frame, grab pattern, cycle to the next frame, and grab pattern, cycle backwards. And yeah, it did end up then bringing that keyframe down. So I'm going to grab pattern, frame forward, frame forward, frame forward, grab pattern, frame forward, no, frame backwards, and it's getting these down just a little bit. But again, I know full well that these are sticking, so whatever this error is saying, I actually know that it's a good track. It's just because of the luminance changes that it's freaking out, okay? So I'm going to come to this peak over by here, just to kind of see what is going on over here, just to see. And having looked at it, it is sticking again. So this peak is due to the luminance change. So I'm going to try and grab the pattern and track a frame forward, and it doesn't really help. So I'll try grab a pattern and then go backwards into it, and it does bring it down. Okay, so I'm going to check this peak as well. And yeah, I'm fine with that. It just does get a bit smaller, but that's again due to the luminance. The triangle changes size. That's due to luminance, that is. So I'm happy with that. And yeah, we're sticking on it all the way through. I'm going to come to this peak as well. By the way, when you're cycling through, only use this grab pattern if you are sure that it hasn't moved. And I am sure with this one. So I'm just going to grab pattern, cycle forward, and grab pattern, and go backwards as well, just to see if I can get these down. Okay, I'm happy with this, even though these are saying that they're errorsome. I am happy that my tracker up here is sticking well to the hazard lights, okay? And it does change size, and that's due mainly to the luminance changes because it's getting brighter and lighter and all that, okay? So I'm happy with that track. What you can do is you can check this track. So if you come out and go to your transform tab and change this to stabilize 1 point, click that and now play it through to see if, turn the overlay off as well. If you hold your mouse there and you play it through and it sticks throughout, then you've got a good track. So I'll pause mine as I do that for you. Okay, so mine hasn't got enough memory, unfortunately, to play back fully. So I'll just play it from frame 224 and it'll go round to 129. So as I play this now, my mouse will be holding on this hazard light just to show that it's now stable. So you can see that as I play it through, my mouse is now sticking to that hazard light or staying in the same place. So it's stabilized around that point, but you can see that there's still some jitteriness, and that's the rotation in there. So what we need to do is we need to do another point. We need to basically rinse and repeat the process which we just did. So I'm going to go back to frame 50 or frame 100. Just want to get a nice clear shot there of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my tracker. I'm going to add track. Make sure, right, where's my track gone now? So my add track 2 is there. So I'm going to make sure that I'm going to home in on this little corner by here. So this little corner where this blurred number kind of merges with the line. Okay, so I'm going to go around there. That's the area. I'm going to come quite tight around that. And this is the area I want to search for in. Okay, and make sure adjust for luminance changes is on, translation rotate is on, when error, if so, pattern grab behavior is set to if error above, and this is set to 0.0005. Okay, I just made that more sensitive there. It was normally 0.001, but I always make that more sensitive. Okay, just to get a better result. I'm going to come into my transform actually and turn this off stabilize as well. Just so nothing glitches. Anyway, I've got that set up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to track backwards, and I'm now going to track forwards from frame 100 to get the rest of it. Okay, so as I was tracking forwards, I realized that my tracker had slipped and it actually stopped at frame 227. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to see and have a look for where this goes wrong. Okay, so back at frame 100. It's going well, I'm comfortable with this. It does sort of start to drift around about frame 100 and, yeah, frame 115 it goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to move on frame 115, move this back. I'm going to widen my search area slightly to see if that helps. And I'm now going to see if tracking forward, now that I've given it that keyframe, see if that helps now. What I could also do is go to settings and change my pattern grab behavior to every frame, see if that gives us a hand as well. So let's now try track forward. That seems to be sticking a lot better. It has slipped a little bit again, and we'll go in and we'll cater that later and help that a little bit more. You can see it's already slipped off, but I do want to see just how far it goes and how it deals with this now. Perhaps you could have tracked this corner over here. That may have been a little bit easier because I did notice his sort of neck comes into play a little bit by there, but I'm still confident that we can get this working with this little track. So let's just see how it does, and then we can see that we need to come back in. Okay, so this is how our track's completed. Let's scrub through. First of all, let's turn on the traffic lights, just to kind of see what we've got. So traffic lights on, and it's actually saying it's green throughout, which I don't actually believe. So, you know, these are a good indication, but they're not always the best. So let's go into our curve editor, track to error, and let's right click just to make sure frame all, we've got them all. Okay, so right at the end, it does get a little bit errorsome because he does kind of cross over it, but that's fine. I'm going to come back to around about, let's have a look up here. I'm using this up here just to see where it does start to slip again. And I think it's good up until about frame 148. What I'm going to do is, yeah, here it is. It's this little peak by here. So I'm going to grab the pattern again. I'm going to track forward. And actually it has slipped off, so I'm just going to come up here and track forward, track forward, track forward. Okay, and grab the pattern again just to make sure, track forward. And I'm now just going to hit the play track forward button, track to end, and I'm going to keep an eye down here at these errors, and I'm going to keep an eye over here to make sure it sticks, okay? So track forward, it is sticking quite a bit better this time. Okay, I'm going to stop because I did notice a little bit of a problem here. It peaks because his collar just crosses it. So I'm going to come here, track forward one frame. Okay, grab pattern. Even though he's starting to cross, I'm going to grab pattern, track forward one frame. Yeah, I'm happy with that, even though it's got a bit of an error. Track forward by a frame. Yeah, happy with that, even though it's giving me that error. Track forward by a frame. Track forward. Grab pattern. Track forward. Track forward. Okay, I'm going to grab pattern again because he's crossing again. Track forward, grab pattern, track forward. Okay, I'm comfortable with that, so I'm going to grab the pattern again and play track forward for a little bit. Make sure it sticks. Okay, I did stop then because he does cross over by there, so it's good up until here. Track forward by frame, just move that a little bit closer to the corner. Track forward, track forward. Track forward, track forward. Okay, I'm comfortable with that. I'm going to play track forward now. That seems to stick for the most part. Let's come back, just double check. Yeah, there is lumen. It does shrink and grow a little bit because of the light being blocked. Okay, but now as we come to frame 294, you can see there's a big slippage there, and that's not good, okay? So it's good here, it's good here. So I'm going to come to the frame before, grab the pattern, track forward by a frame, and there, that's sticking a lot better. So play forward. Okay, it's good up until there. I'm now going to do this end bit frame by frame because I know that it gets a bit tricky. So grab the pattern, track forward, this frame, it did shrink then, but that's because some of the light was being blocked. It wasn't a movement. Track forward. Okay. And yeah, again, the light's being blocked. I'm pretty sure that's more or less bang on. And again, it's hard to see, but that is more or less in the same place. The light is just being blocked again. Track forward, track forward, track forward. Yeah, cool. This is still good. No matter what these are saying, I know that we're still in the same place. Track forward, grab the pattern, track forward, track forward. And again, I'm going to manually place this one. I think it's in the same spot, to be honest. Track forward, and that's good. That's good, that's good. Okay, what I was doing there is I was looking at the top of the box, the line of the top of the box, and as I play backwards, that doesn't get any further or closer away from that corner, stays in the same place in relation to this curve. It does at one frame look as if it moves, but that's because the light's getting blocked, and it kind of, as the light's more revealed, then it comes back in. So that is actually a pretty good track. Okay, a lot of this is kind of like learning and practicing a load of shots and learning what to look for and all that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I've got my 2 shots tracked. I'm going to enable translation rotation in both of them, and I'm going to go to the transform node, transform tab, and I'm going to select stabilize, not stabilize 1 point because we've got 2. Okay, so I'll click stabilize, come back to my tracker, come out, turn the overlays off by hitting Q, and I'm now going to play through to make sure that the translation and rotation is stabilized around these 2 points. Okay, so let's just give that a little play through and we'll see where we are. Okay, so you can see that our footage has now been stabilized. We can see that these points, the speedometer and the hazard light that we tracked, they're really, really stable, and the edge of the footage is now getting pulled around, okay? So what we can do now with our tracker is we can stop for a second, we can go into the transform tab, just click that to none, and then come into the tracker. So I'm going to come down to my menu, and I'm going to go to transform stabilize and click create, and I'm also going to come down and I'm going to go transform stabilize baked and click create. With the difference between these 2 nodes, okay, once this second one loads, one has got an expression line and one hasn't. What that means is this node will do the exact same as this. Okay, so if I link this up, we'll be able to view our stabilized footage through this node now. But if we make any changes to our tracker, let's say we retrack or add a tracking point to try and get it even more stable or whatever, this transform stabilize node will update with whatever changes we make in here. However, this one won't because the data is baked in there, it's in there permanently. The fact that I know that my my stabilization is pretty good and is solid, I'm not going to bother using a linked one because it'll just use more processing power. So I'm going to use this transform stabilize baked, okay? I won't use the linked. Right, so now that we've got our stabilize node in there, you'll notice that we've got these lost edges at the side. So all we need to do is make another transform node, and we need to, in this transform node, we need to scale up our footage, not by that much, and just kind of move it and skim through your footage just to make sure that none of these edges creep back in. And I've got a feeling they might at the beginning. Yeah, it's a little bit up there. So I'm just going to scale up slightly, move it up. And you just want to make sure that none of the edges creep back in throughout the shot. And I'm going to scale through very quickly with mine. I'm pretty sure we're going to be fine. Maybe at the end, some of the right might come in. But no, I think we're good. So we're back in Nuke, and you can see now my shot is stabilized. We haven't got any loss of the edges thanks to this transform node we put in, and we have our final stabilized shot. So pretty simple workflow, but you can run into some problems, and that's where these kind of like the stuff we went through with the tracker, with the pattern grab and the curve edge, so that's where they come into play. So I really hope this helped you. If there was anything you kind of didn't understand that I said, please make sure you check out previous tutorials in this series. But yeah, just for tuning in. leave a comment and subscribe, comment what you want to see next, and hopefully see you in another tutorial.